Hey guys, today's story is about an amazing player that is an absolutely terrible person in real life. It was something that came up elsewhere when discussing a player who was a great person outside of tabletop, but a real piece of crap inside of the game. I said I had the opposite problem more often: great players who are awful people. A particular incident from the early to mid-2000s came flooding back to me like a septic tank backing up. So after I ranted about it at length, I thought I would post it here. All of my games have been online, except for the one in real life one, who I am titling this after because she really was the worst. Every time I've had one, they are poetic souls, wordsmiths, who know just the right amount of big fancy words to throw in without coming across like they are pedantically compensating for something. Dedicated to their characters and to making sure that they work in the current party. They were just the sort of people who would just not shut up about their weird fetishes, politics, and who would insult you every other sentence because they thought it was funny. They would spam up your private messages with inane dribbling, email you pictures of said fetishes, have trouble taking no for an answer, blow up at you if your political or religious beliefs weren't in perfect sync with theirs, and spend every waking hour they weren't playing the game with you trying to convert you, or get you to cyber with them. But the one from the in-real-life game? She made me miss that. Those other guys were manageable if you were thick-skinned enough and could tune them out. Just thinking about her has me pouring a glass of whiskey and wanting to light up a smoke. And I don't smoke! She was a neutral good warrior mage human who was a combination of a fighter, sorceress with a dragon disciple. The DM didn't want overpowered races and templates like Half-Dragon, so this was a fair trade-off. She helped us in melee, buffed the other frontline members with things like mage armor, and whenever we encountered some magic puzzle, she let the multi-class rogue wizard, half drow, half surface elf, have first crack at it and deliberately avoided putting too many skill points into skills like Decipher Script, Knowledge Arcana, and Spellcraft. She would always let the wizard stay ahead of her. The character also convinced the rogue over time not to steal from NPCs and to turn their life around for the better, in some sincere heart-to-heart moments that didn't involve any diplomacy roles. Not unless the rogue player asked for them. She had a profound effect on my ruthless ranger barbarian mongrel, who was the daughter of a half-elf and a half-orc, as well. She helped her heal from that tragic, edgy, emo backstory we've all forced her friends to endure when we were younger and less experienced. Not that it matters, but for the curious, it was 3rd edition. The other two players were a paladin sorcerer human and a cleric monk dwarf. We all multi-classed and munchkined a little, but nothing particularly game-breaking. She kind of formed the role of her de facto main character if you could have one in a tabletop. Our figurative Optimus Prime, Lion-O, He-Man, Master Splinter, etc. Maybe not the best at everything, maybe not even that powerful of a build, but they were charismatic, and they inspired the other PCs, if not the players themselves, to follow them and to be better. The kind of person the villains would want to turn over a new leaf for, and who did actually convince a few lesser evils to change their ways. She was the glue that held our party together, as the paladin and the dwarf were a bit at odds with my ranger and her wizrogue, and she played this all very well. When it was our character's turn to shine, she would also help them, rather than steal their glory. If you needed a rule to be looked up, she already was on it. If you were having a major dispute in or out of character, she was happy to mediate. If your character was about to die, she would purposely throw herself between you and the source of the danger. You weren't expendable. You were her friend, and she would die defending you. She was the type of player to play along with that kind of character and help them work out their issues. That is the kind of patience and dedication we are talking about here. The type that would take charge when no one else does, but let whoever is asserting themselves to take the spotlight. So with all these good things to say about her, why complain? Well, it's in the title. It's rather funny that she convinced the rogue not to steal from NPC townfolk anymore. Usually the problem is people doing that in-game. Meanwhile, in real life, it was fine to snatch minor things. Small sums of money if you left it laying out, dice, miniatures in one case, borrow books or DVDs and never return them, always eat each other's food but never contribute. I live in the South Midwest. Southern hospitality dictates that you offer house guests food and beverage, especially the ladies. But other players would show up with a pizza, or a potluck, or something on occasion to make up for it. Not this gal. We probably could have tolerated her being a deadbeat, even the actual stealing if it was limited to things like ink pens, even the more major thefts if it could be chalked up to a misunderstanding. But it wasn't. If you ever confronted her about the things that she borrowed, or missing items, she would play dumb. She would prey on people giving her the benefit of the doubt. I think it was the dishonesty. Even when caught red-handed, that just made her absolutely unbearable. More unbearable than the guy who just wanted to have a side session catering to their fetishes and had trouble taking no for an answer. I can just ignore that guy until game time, when he didn't have the guts to pull this stuff. Or I could just not open his emails, etc. But that's another edition of this if I ever feel like burning your eyes. Worse was getting the whole group on the same page to boot her, because she was a good player. Everyone loved her heroic, fearless, morally upstanding leader character, especially the rogue. No one wanted to get rid of her. Naturally, the first person to notice was the DM, who hosted the games at his house and had the most things stolen from him. He had to convince the rest of us that she was a scumbag. I'm happy to say I was number 2 on the GTFO train, but even that took a little coercing because she was a blast to play with in the game. But also because she played the victim oh so very well. Oh, the DM probably just lost it somewhere after I returned it to him, and he just doesn't remember. Why do people have to be this way? Something goes missing and automatically someone had to steal it? Which usually kept me at bay. Another one being, why does he keep singling me out? Is it because I'm a girl? Which was a misstep because half the game was actually female, and it actually kind of ticked me off. He didn't give the rest of us, or his wife, any grief, but here she is being singled out for being a woman? And expecting me to swallow that? I don't think so. When she figured out that it was working against her with me, she dropped it. But the next excuse was a nail in the coffin. She accused the DM of being messy and losing stuff that way, including things that she'd swiped from the other players. Problem is, while the DM was admittedly a slob, his wife was a clean freak and kept that house immaculate. If he ever did misplace something, she would have found it and asked him where he wanted to put it. Only so many things can fall behind a desk or under the fridge. The wife didn't play, but was the one who fed us and helped us set up a lot. And, in fairness, I think the reason we always played at their house was because keeping her eye on her husband because he was with 3 younger women. But, regardless, when she heard the slob misplacing things approach, it set her off. Bad. And she watched her like a hawk. Of course, she knew that at least 3 people were watching her closely, so she stopped stealing for a little while, which left us in a precarious situation where 3 people knew she was a thief in real life, and 3 others thought it must have just been a misunderstanding. And that was contagious, even to the three of us that knew, because it made us uncertain. If not the DM and his spouse, it at the very least had me second-guessing myself. The Rogues player spent time with her outside of sessions, though, and steadily, over time, her biggest supporter turned into her biggest detractor. She kept noticing how money would keep going missing, because she always paid when they ate out. Because she would say, "Oh no, I forgot to bring any money. Could you get it?" And then she finally caught her digging around in her purse. Which set the other two naysayers straight, and by unanimous decision, we kicked her out of the game. We didn't even really need to tell her. She knew she was screwed when she got caught rummaging through the Rogue's handbag. She just stopped showing up, but the DM sent her the email anyway, while being a little bit gleeful about it. Sadly, however, she would unfortunately get the last laugh. The Rogues player was humiliated, and bowed out soon after from sheer embarrassment of having defended her as often and as stubbornly as she did. We tried to stop her, even the DM as irritated as he was, but she wasn't having it. Because it was dragged out as long as it was, it made the DM and his wife a little bitter to the three that held out. And it made sessions tense where the slightest annoyance, especially questioning his judgments in and out of game, could set them off. The remaining two didn't like how the DM and his wife were a bit catty with them. There was a fight over that. A short hiatus, came back, things seemed to be fine with the three remaining players for a bit, but then I changed jobs. As this wasn't my hometown, I was working somewhere else, and on my last workday, I would go out to play. Combine that with my days off now being weekdays, when the DM was working, and it being a 50-mile drive, yeah. I later found out that the damage was permanent. The DM still had hard feelings about people not believing him, and fighting him over rejecting her from his home. It showed when he tried bringing a new player in, and they immediately picked up on the low-key hostility. The other two players agreed, it was understandable, but they didn't want to deal with him getting bent every time they second-guessed a minor thing. They amicably agreed to dissolve the group when they realized this wasn't going to go away anytime soon. So that is how one player, who was a stellar player in-game, managed to be the absolute scum of the earth because they were a kleptomaniac in real life. For reasons completely unrelated to the game itself, she managed to destroy the group she was playing with by doing something people normally complain about people doing in-game. Well guys, what can I really say but, wow. That one player basically managed to destroy a small group of friends, and even if they weren't necessarily friends, but more than likely she destroyed their desire to play the game, at least for a short while. I would also say that she was manipulative with the fact that she was trying to play the victim and try to cater to people's emotions so that they would keep her around, and she more than likely knew this as well and why she was trying to get away with these things. She more than likely knew that nobody really wanted to get rid of her and that people actually liked having her around and playing her character as she played it. But in any case, guys, bonus time. The OP had added a few extra pieces of information after they had made the post originally, most of which is a lot of detail on what she stole and how much she stole and for how long. So without further ado, because people were curious how much she actually stole, I did some figuring out in my head, best as I am able to 15 years after the fact. I'll just copy-paste the comments I made here. So let's say about a year and a half, approximately, of meeting up weekly, which should be about 72 times where she could have swiped something. We can knock that down a little for the sessions she knew she was being watched, but that wasn't until the very end. So you're still looking at around 50 to 60 times. We're also not going to include bumming food, but that might potentially skyrocket the amount if you include what she got off the wizard. Some sessions she made off with more than others, and some of the missing items might have legitimately just been missing. But I think the most expensive was a Dragon Mini, which might have been a good $50 to $70 at the time. She also nabbed a good dozen or so books, which were about $10 to $30 each. I'm going to say in the middling range about 20 each. Usually via borrowing. DVDs are not necessarily game-related, and I'm not necessarily sure of how many of those went missing. Maybe another dozen or so. Game maps, I know at least one went missing. We'll say about $10 again. So far, this equates to about $430 or so from the big items. The ones I can remember people complaining went missing, or said she never gave back after borrowing. Other smaller minis, dice, you could probably get a set for about $10, and she might not steal the whole set. Pens were a big one that really annoyed the DM early on. Probably what she started with, but the difference in value between even a Goblin Mini and a pen or a D6 is pretty big. Too much time has passed for me to accurately gauge what might have been taken, and she was there before I started playing. I'll lowball it at about $3 of stuff on average per session. $150 to $180 of minor things. Then money laying out, which stopped being laid out quickly when they realized she was leaving. $20 bills went missing often. The DM liked leaving money laying out for his wife to shop with under the coffee pot, a stack of 20s. And sometimes she came up short, but for a long time, "I must have miscounted," was the go-to, because his go-to response was not, assuming that someone might have stolen it like she suggested. This could have went on the entire time until he started making sure it wasn't out for those last few months. If she snagged a single 20 every week, that is still about $1,000 to $1,200. It wasn't every week, at least I don't think it was, but it was enough for me to hear her say, "You were short. I thought you were giving me $140 for groceries. I had $120. Or something to that effect, pretty regularly. So, not including theft outside of sessions, or food, we're already looking at about $1,080 to $1,210. It could have been more or less. In addition to just not remembering things clearly, there might have even been things stolen I wasn't aware of. Or things the person they were stolen from wasn't aware of. Mind you, this is also in $2005, so adjust for inflation. If she was a klepto, or just that much of a cheap jerk, what is to stop her from stealing something ridiculous, like a roll of toilet paper or a coffee mug? I don't think anyone knew the exact extent, even at the time. Well, guys, one of the things that really comes to my mind immediately is, if she was stealing this much and they knew she was stealing this much, why did no one call the police? Maybe it wouldn't have gone anywhere, but you sure as heck could have tried to do something. The amount that she stole is pretty bad. Sure, people have stolen more, like people who have robbed banks, but theft is theft. It sucks. I would know. One of the things I'm also really curious about is what she did with all the things that she stole. Was she selling them? Was she keeping them? Was she even using them if she kept them for another D&D campaign or something? It's really curious to me if she was really doing anything with them, or if she was just hoarding them, is a hoarder, or was just throwing them out, because there's some kleptomaniacs that will steal something and then just throw it out. It also makes me think that she probably at some point might have stolen jewelry or something as well, because there's small little things that are worth a lot of money, and if she is one, kleptomaniac, or two actually selling it, what better way of making money than stealing jewelry? I can completely understand the DM being sore about the players having defended her as well, But if you're going to hold a grudge over that, you probably should have called it off a little bit sooner. Really, this kind of situation just would leave a bad taste in everyone's mouth, and I really wouldn't be surprised if any of the people involved would never want to play the game again because of something like this. As far as I can understand, that is not necessarily the case, but still. I also did the inflation calculation, about $1,000 in 2005. At the current time of making the video, at the very least, the inflation cost would be about $1,324 with 52 in change. Now, I don't know how accurate that is, but that's still a decent amount more than the listed amount stolen. It's not an amazing amount, but if you had that much interest in your bank, we would live in interesting times. But in any case, guys, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you have a story that you'd like me to narrate, let me know. And as always, thanks for watching, and have a good one.